now. So we're recording, and I'm just going to start streaming to Facebook as well. One moment while I do that. And then we can start. Okay. Okay, fantastic. Right, so we're now, welcome to the Facebook audience. We're now live on Facebook as well, and we've got everybody in Zoom here. So welcome to this session. Before I hand over to Majo, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about her. But how are you today, Majo?
I'm good, thank you. Nice
Fantastic.
and beautiful cold weather in Uruguay.
Is it? And where exactly are you in Uruguay?
I live a little bit off the coast. I live in El Pinar, which is near the capital city, but it's next to the beach. So
That sounds perfect. The best of both
exactly.
worlds. So it's great to have you here today. Let me tell everyone a bit about you. So Maria Jose Galleno has been teaching English since 2003, an educational technologist since 2017, and she is also a British Council online moderator and online materials writer. She's very much interested in the application of technology in the classroom with meaningful purpose. I like that bit. She holds a master's in digital technology and communication and education from the University of Manchester, and another master's in TESOL, that's in teacher education, also from the University of Manchester. So we're really lucky to have you here today. Excited to hear what you have to say. I'm going to hand over to you now. I'm here if you need me, but enjoy the session.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today. It's fantastic to see so many different nationalities displayed. I always enjoy that. I'm just opening the chat so that way I can see as you are commenting. Okay, so thank you, everybody. It's great to see so many different countries represented. I'm taken aback, so it's fantastic. So today I'd like to talk to you about, of course, artificial intelligence. We know artificial intelligence is the new craze at this moment. Everybody's talking about it. And let's face it, if you're like me, when you just first heard of it, maybe you felt a little bit worried. How do you feel about AI? If you are like me, please feel free to write in the chat about your feelings about artificial intelligence. If you're like me, you are probably the Terminator generation. We grew up with watching the films of Terminator. We know that Skynet is going to, we grew up knowing this. We grew up expecting something negative about artificial intelligence. We knew it was going to come sometime, maybe not as close as it is now, that it's here with us, and it's always been with us, but now it's kind of like really even in our lives, in our day-to-day lives, it's in our phones, in our computers. And let's face it, it's terrifying. Now, this is AI for you. AI is here. And I'm loving the comments that you're saying. A lot of you are saying about that it's scary. Some of you are, I love Katie saying suspicious. I have to admit, I was also a bit skeptical at first. It's technology. There's always a bit of a wonder and a question about what technology can bring. But there is that fantastic thing of how can I use this in the classroom? Will this be useful in the classroom? Senya, you're mentioning it, that it's a great help for teachers. Kaylee, it should be embraced. Of course, there's something scary about artificial intelligence. Maybe you're not against it. Maybe you have, as Salma's mentioning, mixed feelings. And I think this is a key factor that a lot of us are probably feeling. We have mixed feelings about artificial intelligence, And Mohammed, I think you are summarizing the biggest worry of all is that it's the greatest challenge for the academic integrity. You know, we are probably worried about what could happen in this case, you know, and I have to admit, I'm also worried. You know, I can see such great benefits of artificial intelligence. I also am a bit worried about what is to happen. You know, Cynthia's mentioning it's a new trend in this generation. You know, we can't deny it's here. It's here. It came to us without expecting. I don't think we were expecting this. You know, there are many things out there. And I think it's all about how we are going to really take part in artificial intelligence. You know, and then there's always the question, can AI substitute us teachers? What do you think? What is the biggest worry? Is that the worry that we might lose our jobs, our income? You know, the reality is that there's so many things out there that we still don't understand about artificial intelligence. I am not an expert of artificial intelligence. I have found tools that I've used in the classroom have really worked well, and I'm making the most of it. There are some things that, because of my studies that I have done, I'm a bit more skeptical about. I take my time. I make sure that things aren't, you know, I don't believe in everything is perfect. That's definitely not the case. But, you know, in English teaching, we always are. I think that English teachers are the pioneers of education. We are the ones that when something new comes, we are the ones that try it out. I want you to think about your context today. Aren't you the pioneer in your schools? Isn't the English department different from others? And it's not a factor of anything about the subjects. On the contrary, I think subject teachers are fantastic and I work very close with them. But is it that I'm not sure what it is about the English teacher that something new comes out and we have to try it out? You know, we're not happy unless we try things out. And, you know, there are certain things that are scary. You know, we can find a few things. And as you're saying, we have to be skeptical. You have to be open-minded without thinking that everything is, you know, as we say in Spanish, it's not everything is perfect. No, everything is a color of rose. There are differences that we've got. So how can AI become an invaluable ally to us? You know, exactly, Noreen, as you're mentioning, you're a pioneer of project work. And now I'm sure other subjects will do that. And I'm loving this question. Will AI kill the teachers and students' creativity? Let's have a look to see what we have about this, because this is one of the things that I want to explore. Now, AI is fantastic. AI has this ability to create this new world of, you know, this new world of impossibilities, you know, and all of these aspects have to do with what we can do with AI. Now, AI can help us create tasks. It can give us data-driven insights, and I think this is the biggest thing that we have to our advantage, which will allow us to create these personalized learning situations. And of course, it can give us support in our administrative tasks. Let's think about what we teachers usually dislike most of our context. I particularly don't like, you know, the administrative tasks. It's probably the thing that I find the most annoying. I love teaching. I love working with my students. I even love planning. I don't like doing the administrative tasks, but there is a way that I can work around this. So what can we do? All right, so the idea today is to show you a few things that I have tried out, and of course, getting to see what happens with this sort of thing, okay? Well, unfortunately, Asia, with invigilation, we can't really we need a different form of AI, but I'm sure it'll be coming soon. I agree. Marking, I have been using, one of the things I'm going to show you is how with marking,
at using AI has been a lot. I've used two different sources, ChatGPT, which I'm sure you're all aware of, and the Gemini. Gemini is very similar to ChatGPT, it's just two different providers, okay? So I did the tasks in both. I didn't find any differences. It's just about a style, you know, there's nothing that you should be worried about. Use one or the other. And all the examples I'm going to show you have all been used with a free version. I have not used the paid version of any of these sites. Okay, so hopefully you'll be able to make most of this. Now, with task creation, sometimes you want a specific task. You know, you want something that it's so specific that you might not be able to find it in a textbook. So, for example, I was preparing my class for my first, it's a B2 level class. Those of you who prepare for Cambridge levels exams, I'm sure you know them, for a certificate. If not, it's a B2 level in the Common European Framework of Reference. So I wanted a specific task. You know, I wanted to design an activity similar to the reading and use of English part 1 specifically. I wanted something specific with 5 blanks and 4 options for each blank on the topic of education. So I wanted to create a paragraph, something very simple on the use of technology, okay? And this is sort of education. And this is what it came up with. It came up with the text. Those of you who are familiar with part 1, okay? We've got a part 1 sort of exercise where they have to fill in the blanks and they're given the options, as you can see below. So what you've got here, okay, so you have the 4 options. Now, here, the idea is that students read and then they choose A, B, C, or D. This is a typical English exam sorts of question. Now, I wanted my students to have something specific about education, okay? So, and this is what it created for me. I wanted a specific task that I did not find in a textbook, or maybe in the textbook that I have it, I already had that. And I wanted something similar. And this is what it came up with. Now, for me to do this, it would probably take me a long time. It would definitely take me more than 5 seconds. This took me around 5 minutes because I put in the question and it didn't really understand what I wanted it to do. So I had to take a few steps back and, you know, rephrase the question and everything like that. And that way you are having that sort of thing. Okay, so in this sort of thing, what we're doing here is we are trying to create a specific task, okay, that can help us with this, okay? And for me, it was fantastic because I was able to create a very quick task in a few seconds and then print it, get it ready for my students to use in class or upload it to my platform, or you can create the online version, whichever format you have, but you have the content ready. And like I said, this took me 5 minutes to do because of the questions. It took me 5 minutes with the right prompt for it to understand what I actually wanted to do. Okay, again, you can use this. It's all about having practice, which I will give you some tips at the end on writing prompts. Another task was that a few months ago, I had to do a supply work. A teacher was missing at school, and they asked me to come in and teach a class. And of course, yes, of course, if you look on the top here, these are the prompts that I use, okay? Here was the use. That's when you see my face and the text, okay? You have the prompts there, all right? So here, for example, so I had to do a supply work at an A2 level. I haven't taught A2 level in a long time. For some reason, we didn't have books. We didn't have anything. So I was going to I needed something quick. I knew that I looked at the register and I saw that they had been talking about sports and gym. So I asked AI, give me a text students could read that would follow up a conversation on the gym at an A2 level. Okay, so here we have an A2 level sort of task. If we read is, hi there, I wanted to share a bit about my routine at the gym. I go to the gym 3 times a week, usually after work. Have a read. If you read the text, this is something that an A2 level can understand. But let's face it, maybe this isn't enough. What else do we need for this? You might need questions. Okay. So give me a prompt for A2 according to the Common European Framework of Reference for students to practice speaking in the context of a gym. So I also had a speaking activity. I had some vocabulary phrases that they had to, write about. Maria, I'm showing ChatGPT and Gemini, the 2 sites that are very common for this particular tasks that I'm creating. Okay. So from here, I had asked also can you create true or false questions with answers? I need 5 true or false questions on the text. So it gave me 5. So I had the reading task, I had a reading comprehension, and then I did a speaking task. Now, all of this took me 5 minutes to prepare. Those were the 5 minutes that I had between when I was told and then when the class started. Now, as an experienced teacher, we know we can probably wing any lesson. But I don't like the idea of not being prepared. It was a specific circumstance. The teacher was away. She had been sick. It wasn't something planned. It was just like last moment she tried to withstand. And these are things that you have done. Alison, fantastic question. These documents, you don't create documents. You're asking ChatGPT a question, and from there you get a text. You copy the text and you place it in a document, and you can adapt it, of course. You can edit. I mean, this was very simple, and I read it more or less, and then I check to see if I like it. Maybe I will change a word or something, and that sort of thing will be done. Rameshish, coming right now, okay? I'll get that. I'll show you in a second. So what you've got here is that I created a task based on what I needed. I gave it the level, I gave it the skill that I wanted to work in, and I gave it a topic. Luckily for us in English, everything is really well done. Okay, so because English is probably one of the languages that is most spoken, whether it's the first or the second language, it's being used a lot, and ChatGPT and Gemini have a lot of knowledge of English. The more things that we ask, the more information we input in these tools, they allow us to have something more precise. Okay, so these sort of things out is what we do, what we work with. Okay, so for example, those of you who are asking about images, gencraft.com, okay, is a free site to create images. Now it's free, but it has, thank you, Melissa, you've got there the link, but it has 5 images for free a day. Okay, so you can write prompts, 5 prompts a day, and the images it creates a day. It's okay about the good thing about this is that you don't have to worry about safeguarding, because these are not real children. Okay, so if you want something a bit more demographic, you can put different different prompts where you say, okay, I want a more generic type of classroom. I want you can add as much as you want. Here, for example, I said, I need pictures of students learning in and outside of the classroom. And it gave me these pictures. Okay. Now, GenCraft, you add it to your, you Google it and you start to create you create a profile. It's free, and 5 pictures a day. For me, it's enough. I don't need more than 5 pictures a day. At first, you do. You need, I'll be honest with you, because getting the right prompt is a bit tricky. You'll have to work on it a bit more, and it might take you more than 5 tries, and that's okay. It's about the learning process. This in particular was very quick because it was just a classroom. I wanted a picture of students learning in the classroom and students learning outside the classroom, because this is a typical B2 level sort of exercise. Compare and contrast different learning styles, different learning opportunities. Which do you prefer? This sort of exercise, again, it's a very easy, very simple, very typical of international exams. Here, okay, no, Gemini, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't generate images. Here you've got, this is GenCraft, it's not Gemini, okay? So yes, here GenCraft allows this to create these images, okay? 5 images a day for free. If you want something specific, you're going to have to work for it, okay? So for example, those of you who are saying, before I continue here, Diane, you're asking, can GenCraft be used for examples for the photos task in FCE, CAE? If you can only get 5 pictures, can they be saved? Yes, of course. You can download them, save them, and then these 2 I created like 2 months ago. Okay, so, and these are the typical first certificate comparing and contrasting different learning opportunities. Okay. Some of you asked about images and poetry. Now, I teach English. I teach English as a second language, but I also teach English literature. My students sit for international exams for language and literature in English, and this is what I created. I wanted an image. This is about A Doll's House, if you've read it, by Ibsen. It's a book, it's a play, okay? And so let's have a look at here, okay? So you've got the upper class. I needed an upper class woman hiding secrets from her husband and being blackmailed by somebody else. So I needed for it to look something like that, and representing the Banksy style of silhouette. Okay, so these silhouettes are typical of a Banksy style of, he's a street artist, and we were comparing Banksy and the Doll's House. Okay, so exactly, Claudia. You understood where I was coming from for the IB. So what I wanted to do was to see if they could combine something. Okay, now here I can see these images. I can see how these things are being connected. Okay, and this is one of the fantastic things that I've got, is that you can create anything you want with those images. This is GenCraft. Okay, you can specifically think of the process of not just the images, but also the style. I wanted a silhouette. I didn't want anything else. I needed the silhouette because I needed this specific thing. Okay. So there's loads of things that you can do, and it allows you to play around and not always have the same thing. So today, for example, imagine those of you who are working with younger students. The typical thing when we teach children the parts of the body is maybe to create a friendly monster or to create the perfect pet. Now, when they create that friendly monster, what do they do? It has 5 arms, 6 legs, wings, big eyes, all those things. Now you can put all of that into the prompt of GenCraft, and it creates this new thing. I always put the word cute because I think it's important. A cute tiger with wings wearing a crown. And this is the sort of thing that we can do with our students. So really the limit is our imagination. You asked earlier about, you asked specifically earlier about the importance of if we can use AI in creativity. Here you can. I'm very creative. I don't have any artistic skills when it comes to drawing. Okay, so the idea, of course, is to be able to find all of this. Okay, so the idea, of course, is to find all these sorts of things and be able to move forward. So another aspect, and this is probably one of the greatest things I particularly love about AI, and this is with Gemini or with ChatGPT, is the ability to leave you with data-driven insights. Now, this is what AI is probably the best thing for you. We are allowed to, it allows us to have this moment of AI, what it does really is has input, it can summarize it very quickly, analyze it very quickly, and give you an outcome. Okay, it gives you that data-driven insight. Now, data-driven insight is a big thing in education. We've been trying to do it a lot, you know, from the data and create the next few steps on how to help our students. And sometimes we think of like big data, okay, usually test scores are available for that. But in this particular case, I did something for my students. So the first thing we need to know is think about safeguarding. Everything that is online stays there forever. I don't know what AI does with what I input. I know it stores it. It stores the prompts and it keeps all that. If I put complete works of my students' writing, it could in the future affect copyright issues. It could affect, we don't know what's going to happen in the future when it comes to AI. So in this case, I use my common sense. My common sense tells me I can't put everything. So I'm going to use specifics. So for example, I'm going to use the introduction. I want to focus on my students' introductions to their essays. Are they doing good essays or not? So what did I do? I copied and pasted, okay, these pictures. I copied and pasted the introductions into Gemini or ChatGPT, whichever the two is fine. And I asked it, look at the prompt. This is the prompts that you can see here. Compare introductions to an essay at a B2 level and identify common trends between students. Give me tips on how to help students write a better introduction. Okay, so what are the common trends? So I copy-pasted their work. What were the common trends? Engaging with the prompt. Both introductions directly address the statement. Students had to write, teenagers are too young to teach anyone. Okay, that was the topic of their essay, and they had to write a for and against essay. Again, typical aspects, typical exercises of a B2 sort of level student. From there, they had to write the essay. Stating a position. While subtle, both introductions hint at the writer's stance. Okay, introduction uses a bit unfair, doesn't mean they can't, and introduction use seems a bit unfair, doesn't mean they can't, to offer that similarity. Okay, I can't remember if it was Gemini or ChatGPT, but either of the two, I use both of them indistinctively. One day I used ChatGPT, the next day I'd use Gemini. So I just try things out. And of course, the transition sentence, they both use it to move from one statement to the other. So these two introductions, these are the trends. They are both engaging, they both state a position, and they both have a transition sentence from introduction to the body. Okay? And then I asked her to give me tips on how to fix it. Well, the formality of introduction 1 was more casual, okay? Whereas the introduction 2 was more formal. Okay, so I knew from one student I had to give it, okay, let's focus on formality. You know, complex of structures. Use introduction 2, complex sentences like while life undoubtedly plays, demonstrating a stronger grasp of a B2 level grammar. So what can I do with this afterwards? I can go to the board and get my students. I mean, I only did it for 2 introductions, but you can do it for more. Okay. Christina, this is why I said we can't use all of it. Okay. I only focused on the introduction because I wanted to specifically focus on the introduction of my students. And it wasn't their final product. It was just an in-class activity. Write the introduction to this essay, and they wrote it. Okay. Zachary, yeah, yes. The first time I do it with them. Okay. You're going ahead of me. I'll show you the process that I did and then how my students continued after that. So my students, I went to the board and said, okay, everyone, let's have a look at what we see here. The common trends are both of you are doing this. You're engaging with a prompt, you're stating a position, your transitioning is great. But let's focus on the formality. Read your formality. What functions have we learned? And you can talk about the functions that they've learned, the grammar that they've learned. Identify any of these functions in your writing. Can you rewrite sentences with this? Now, what I'm doing with my students here is I am focusing. What am I doing with my students? I am working through the process. You know, I am working with them. I'm asking them to reflect on their writing. Now, I honestly think that the most important thing that goes hand in hand with the use of AI is reflection. This data-driven insight is probably the biggest advantage that it has over anything else that we've done, any other tools that we can use in the classroom. And this is something that will help us in the future. So if my students get to start with, okay, instead of rewriting this, they had to rewrite it. They went through the process. Okay, so the process was AI helped identify the issues. Now let's go to the next step of AI is going to help me with this aspect. And this is what do I need to identify? Find the trends, okay? What is it that I'm going to do and how am I going to move forward from this? And after this, I take the next step forward, which is moving on with also more focus on different areas. Now, all of these things have helped me focus and give my students the ability to really reflect. And this is what I love about AI. It removes the pressure of me finding, because in the past, what I would do is that I would, after doing all of that, I would read each one, identify trends, and then after that, I would post them on the board, and then the teaching would start. Now, I would do that from one day to the next if I was lucky and if I had time. It took me a long time to really plan, but with this, the energy that takes me to identify common trends and see what general ideas I can help most of my class with, that took a lot of energy. Now that energy that takes a while is being put where? Into the actual plan. So I create a checklist. And then from the checklist, I say, okay, let's start rewriting these sentences. Identify sentences that we can use past perfect, that you can use these particular linkers, that you can use conditionals. And then from there, that energy that took me, because planning takes energy, it takes time. So if we use the identification part, which is probably the most trickiest, and and it takes time. And from there, we put it into ChatGPT or Gemini. we get that insight, and then I plan based on that insight. Imagine the consequences and imagine the process and the thinking that goes behind it, because you're asking students to really focus on you're really focusing on the reflection, and that is what we need to help students with. For example, this was something in particular that I asked for personalized feedback. My prompt was compare introductions to an essay at B2 level, identify common trends between students, and give me tips. Now I asked them to give me tips on how to help students write a better introduction. Now, instead of rewriting, because what I do, why do I do this with them? I afterwards show them my process. Because if I just get my students to rewrite, they will probably do rewrite and not focus on the process. And again, I really want them to really reflect. Reflection is a huge part of my classroom. It's probably the most important thing. It's the most important skill that my students will learn by the time they finish my class. I don't care if they remember the content or not. What I remember is that they are able to reflect. And if they can reflect on their own, they will be able to learn on their own in the future. So when I ask them to do that, give me tips. Oh, sorry. Jump forward there. So when I asked her to give me tips on how to help students write a better introduction, we have here, imagine a world of teenagers. So change the hook, look at the thesis, and then introduction 2, it rewrites. And then I ask them, and then I ask them, what are the differences? What changes from yours to the ChatGPT? Why do you think ChatGPT is better written? Now, ChatGPT can improve writing, but it can't improve creativity. If the student is creative, if the student gets the ideas and they have that thinking process, the writing can be improved. The creativity, not really. It's not very creative. Okay, so this personalized feedback can be provided, in this sense. So, and probably what I hate the most in my classrooms is the report cards. I hate writing report cards. Luckily, I need to write report cards in English. So for me, it's a huge benefit. But again, I don't have ideas. So here, for example, I just wrote needs to focus on a more focused analysis. Now, look at my grammar there. I'm an English teacher. This is the prompt I actually gave ChatGPT. Need to focus on a more focused analysis. The reality is, this is awful, right? Needs to submit on time. Needs to submit work on time. Again, my grammar here, this was clearly very early in the morning or very late in the evening. I just needed to get my report cards out of the way. And then it gives me suggestions. For focused analysis, the student has shown some ability to analyze text, but needs to focus on developing a more detailed and focused approach to analysis. Identify literary devices, techniques. If I notice that something is missing, I will say, oh no, it needs to focus on character development, or needs to, I start to, but at least I have the big idea. And then I can, of course, you can edit. I just copy, paste, and then change it the way that I like it. Now, I'm sometimes a bit, I wouldn't say rude, but maybe too straightforward when it comes to a submission of work. I want my students to submit work on time, and that's it. In that case, I'm very strict in that manner. Now, the students know me, but parents might feel that it's, if I say your son has not submitted work on time, maybe it sounds a little bit rude. So the student has demonstrated some strengths, but needs to focus on meeting deadlines more consistently. It's a nice way of saying get things done on time. Again, I don't want to sound rude, but sometimes I'm too tired. I'm exhausted. I don't want to spend any more time with report cards. I want to plan. My energy is in planning. I don't like report cards. I don't like to do the admin work, but it's part of our job. So I feed the most important things that it needs to have on ChatGPT or Gemini, and they provide the information. Now, the reality is that this sort of thing takes time. Okay, so these are my final tips. This is something I learned in January this year in a conference, another British Council conference that we had online. And this man was, and I can't remember the speaker, which is awful of me. But one of the things that he suggested was to ask ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever, do you know? So for example, if you are thinking of using, you're looking for a B2 level sort of exercise, you ask, do you know the Common European Framework of Reference? And it gives you yes, blah, 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 and it gives you some information. From there, I need an exercise, I need a reading text of 300 words on the topic of education for a B2 level, It gives you a text. Maybe you don't like the text. Maybe you want to change something of the text, and that's fine. You change it, you edit, whatever it is that you find it's most useful. And that's how you go about it. So asking, do you know, what happens is that it narrows down the search. Because imagine you are in the middle of nowhere. You are in the middle of a desert and all you see around is sand. Okay? Do you know east? You find east. And at least you've got a direction. Okay? And that is the key factor here. What it allows us to do is when you have that opportunity to have that direction, the prompts are easier to be understood by AI, and they will be able to give you more specific feedback of what you are asking for. Ask what you really want to know without thinking of how to write the question. Don't spend hours trying to write the perfect grammatical question. Look at my prompts. Needs to focus on a more focused analysis. This is awful. This is grammatically atrocious. Needs to submit on-time work. No, needs to submit work on time. It doesn't care. AI is not like an English teacher, okay? It's not like us. So just write whatever you need. Don't think too much on how to write the question, and then it will help you feed from there. Writing the right prompt is key. This is what is going to give you the solution, but it takes time. There's a learning curve as with everything. So my recommendation would be is ask more questions, get those and ask questions, and don't be scared to say, okay, no. So for example, the first task I did for a B2 level part 1 FCE type of exercise, it took me 2 or 3 goes. In the end, I said, I copied pasted the text that ChatGPT created and says, remove, I need 5 blanks from this text with 4, and then it took me a while, but that's okay. It's about the learning process of AI and also us, okay? Keep writing questions until you get what you want. Keep going and be specific. Think about the level, the age group, the text type, how many words you want, if it's formal, if it's informal. The other day, for example, my students, I noticed, were creating extremely long sentences. In Spanish, long sentences are very common. In English, there isn't. So, long sentence, yes, but a whole paragraph can never be a sentence. That we know. So I just wrote, I said, write a paragraph on the topic of, I can't even remember what it was, with no punctuation. So I gave them the task, and they had to find the punctuation. I also asked it, rewrite this with punctuation. And there they were able to continue with that. That sort of thing was really good. And they could check the key. So I had created the task and a key. I didn't go crazy. So what it's allowing us to do is enjoying these things, be specific. And the most important thing is to play around, okay? And I think that's the key factor that you can do a lot. Okay, it's all about learning. It's about finding your way and enjoying the process as well. So thank you so much for listening. You can find me on Instagram or on Twitter. Also, if you look for my full name, Maria Jose Galleno, you can find me also on LinkedIn. And I'd be more than happy to share any suggestions that you might have. I'm open for questions, so I'm going to stop sharing the slides.
Thank you so much, Majo. That was great. I'll just give you a second to get your breath back. It's so interesting, and I'm sure, like, I can see the enthusiasm from our audience, but I'm sure, like me, one thing that I loved in your session was really seeing the detail of how you're using it, what prompts you're putting in there, and you know what it can and can't do well. So thank you so much. We love seeing, you know, the mechanics of how exactly we get these things to work. So
Thank you.
we've got lots of questions. I knew
Sure.
we would have. It's such a big topic at the moment. And I did promise you that we wouldn't ask you any really, really difficult questions. But
I'll go for it. But yes, go for it.
There are the two first questions that came in are a question that I think is on many teachers' lips. Will AI substitute teachers in real life? And another one, will teachers be replaced by AI in the future? What's your personal opinion?
My personal opinion is no, definitely not, because this is why I think that our job is not about content, it's about reflection and what we do with the content. Students need to know how to reflect, and that is where we come in. We help them reflect, we help them identify certain things, and that is the great thing about teaching today. It's scary, yes, because it's scary when people, you know, start to question things, and maybe we don't know the answers. But reflection is what is the key.
Okay.
So that's why we won't be replaced.
Okay, I love that as the main message. Okay, so it can do amazing things, but it can't reflect.
No.
It can't think.
Exactly.
Okay. Right, we like that answer. We've got one here from Mariam, a question. She says, is there any app that helps teachers to create engaging and differentiated activities for any topic or lesson?
ChatGPT, Gemini. I created those tasks. You can say, well, instead of for example, the part 1 of the 5 blanks, instead of 5 blanks, choose 3. You can create, instead of a B2 level, a B1 level sort of exercise. Yeah. If you copy paste the exact, for example, you asked for a text, you copy paste that text. I need this for a C1 level, because maybe sometimes we think differentiated learning is about bringing it down, but maybe no, bring it up. So you have a B2 level and maybe a few students are higher, push it, give them a C1 level and see what they come up with. Because the good thing about doing that sort of differentiated learning is that the overall communication and maybe the discussion that comes from that text, everybody can participate. And I think that's the powerful thing, that even though each has a different task, it's still in the same topic. There are still things that are still covered, and they can all share in that sense. So it's about getting those right prompts.
Okay, that's great. So in that instance, you gave quite a specific prompt, right? Really specific. In fact, you need 3 gaps or 5 gaps. What about
Exactly.
for more open things like a whole lesson plan? Would you use ChatGPT for that?
Yes, of course. I mean, you can use the one that I did on the gym, for example. It was a reading text. From the reading, I asked it some comprehension questions. From there, I designed a speaking task for them to discuss on. And then from there, I asked before the speaking task, I said, what are the key vocabulary aspects that they would need? So I pre-taught some vocabulary. It was at the gym, so maybe new workouts and new things that I might not know, appear. We could just search it online. We could use dictionaries, or learn for the next time. But you can all do that step by step. The key factor is I wouldn't ask a full lesson plan. I've asked full lesson plans and I don't like them. they're not creative. So I think it's asking step by step. Okay, in a lesson plan, I need a good warm up. So maybe I don't need help from ChatGPT. I can think of a good warm up, or maybe I do. Maybe I want to use this text. You have a text, you have the warm up, and then you can go step by step. Don't ask for a full lesson plan from one because it's very generic in that sense.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Have a look at the comment. Danish mentions AI needs scaffolding. I agree.
Yeah,
It needs scaffolding.
right. Yeah, exactly. So scaffolding in that it needs to be really specific, and maybe it needs
Exactly.
supplementing, you know, with like more
Of
creative
course.
open tasks, and like your students.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, here's a more like open question from Amin. Don't you think AI is spoiling our creativity and cognition? Is it possibly limiting creativity?
I think it is, because people just want a quick way out. But if we help them understand that it can help us to reflect, then hopefully that won't happen. Some will take the shorter route. I would love to say, no, everything is perfect. Just ask them to reflect. Not everyone will reflect. Not everyone will benefit. But that is education in general.
Yeah.
Not everybody will have the same drive. It's going to kill I don't think it will kill creativity. I think it will help creativity if we use it to our advantage. If not, then that's pretty much on the individual person, what they're going to work through.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, definitely. I mean, people worry about plagiarism and cheating, don't they? But that's been around for much longer than artificial intelligence. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Plus, the good thing about plagiarism with AI is that it's so generic that you notice instantly that it's plagiarism.
Right.
Because there's no creative insight, there's no creative input, output on the topic. So it's just, and plus if one student does it, I can guarantee 4 or 5 as well. And those 4 or 5 essays are exactly the same.
Oh, that's a really interesting point. Yeah, it's like it's catching, because if someone goes, hey, I used ChatGPT and it took me 2 minutes to do my homework, then you can guarantee they will have shared this with everyone else.
Of course. Yeah. And yes, but they'd never read each other's work. So it's just a lot very similar.
Right. Okay, that's really interesting. Okay, here's a question from Laura. She says, on the image that you used, I can look as well for pictures on Google or Pinterest. So what's the difference? What's the advantage with GenCraft?
That I can create exactly what I want. I wanted, for example, if I look for a doll's house on a woman hiding a secret as a silhouette, I might not find specific. I mean, I can find general things, and I agree. Don't use GenCraft to find anything that you can find online. The idea is when you want something very specific, that is where GenCraft comes in.
Yeah. And I don't know if other teachers do this, but I can spend way too long preparing lessons, looking for exactly the perfect image to illustrate something. And I'm like, no, not that cow. I need a different cow. I need a brown cow. You know,
exactly.
It's really the best use of my time.
For example, like when I first created the slides, I sent them to the British Council, and British Council said, you can't use this image because we don't have copyrights. And I'm saying, okay, but it's just the Terminator, it's an image. So I went on GenCraft. I need a robot-like Terminator. And so it's also a way of going through the copyright and not actually going against copyright.
Yeah.
That sort of thing as well.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that before, but for our purposes, it's been fantastic, hasn't it? For this webinar, it's really useful. Yeah. Okay, let's see if we can do one more quick question. We're running out of time. What do you think is the most important difficulty in using AI in class? What's the biggest challenge?
As a teacher, I think the biggest is trying to really know what you want. But then this again is like the key of English, of teaching in general. You need to have your aims. What is your aim behind your lesson. Then how can an AI be a tool? Your aim can never be using AI. That's not an aim. I mean, I always go back to my friend and mentor that, my university professor who always said, what is your aim? You start from your aim. And this is the same thing. What is your aim? I wanted to work on introductions with my students to make them clear. So from there, what did I do with the introductions? We worked on specifics of introductions, of the hook, of the question, of how to really create and to show your side, your opinion in the introduction from the beginning. That's how I used AI to identify those trends and how to improve. I didn't notice in that idea of, I didn't think about how just using AI for the sake of it. It's just another tool.
Okay, thank you. Right. It's a really good point because it can do so much. It's so easy to get distracted, isn't it?
Oof, too easy.
Okay, so how can we use it to meet our needs and to, as a tool to achieve specific learning outcomes?
I would start with whatever takes energy that you don't particularly like. So, for example, in my case is identifying the trends. So, because what I enjoy doing is once I have that information, I enjoy the puzzle. I love puzzles. So I enjoy the puzzle of this is a situation, this is where I want my students to get. They're here, I need them here. How do I get them there? That's what I enjoy.
Yeah.
If you enjoy the analysis, then do the analysis yourself, put it into into ChatGPT or Gemini, and then it can give you the tips. I enjoy the creating of the tips. So whatever you don't like doing, use a computer for that. So
fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, it has been
you.
such a pleasure. Thank you, Majo. It's been fantastic to have you. And I know people have got lots more questions. So the good news is that Majo is back on Teaching English on Facebook next Friday. And I think Melissa's going to put the link in the chat for people in Zoom, and there'll be the reference in Facebook. So come back. It's 2 o'clock. Is it 2 o'clock? Let me just double check. 2 o'clock UK time. So it's open to everybody all over the world, but 2 o'clock UK time next Friday, 24th of May. And we'll have Majo and Cecilia, who will be live on Facebook to answer your questions again. So thank you. Thank you to Karen, who is moderating on Facebook, Melissa, who's here in the chat. And just before we finish, in 15 minutes, we're starting with the next session. But before we finish, I'd like to ask for everybody's help. So I love the fact that our Teaching English community is so generous in exchanging ideas and giving us feedback to help each other. So we'd like to ask for your help with a big survey we're doing at the moment about teaching English, everything on teaching English. So not just the webinars, but also all the teaching resources, the Facebook community, other communities, everything. So if you would be so kind as to give us not more than 15 minutes of your time, then the link to that survey is in the chat and will be in the email as well. So yeah, please let us know what you think. We would love to hear from all of you. So thank you. Right, I'm going to finish this session. Thanks everybody, and see you again in 15 minutes for our next session with Cecilia.
Bye everyone.
Bye everyone.